Alright, welcome back, guys. So today I'm going to be doing the review for Season 7, Episode 3, The Cell. So what an episode, guys. It was definitely pretty depressing. I talked to some people about it, and they were saying how they were depressed afterwards and stuff like that. Definitely a creepier, sort of darker episode than last week, which makes sense. I mean, it's The Walking Dead. We can kind of expect this stuff by now, but yeah. So, anyways, pretty good episode. I did like last week's better, and I bet a lot of people did. But yeah, this one was pretty good. It told us a lot of stuff. It was sort of repetitive a lot, but I think it was supposed to be like the whole thing with Daryl, getting tortured and hearing the song and all that. That was all. That was all part of it. And I'm so sorry I forgot, but spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode. I don't know why people would click on a review of an episode that they haven't seen, but I mean, just in case, I already gave some stuff away, which we knew that he was going to get tortured anyway. So, but just spoiler warning from here on out, I guess, if you haven't seen it. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. I see people giving warnings all the time. Like, whatever. But yeah, so spoiler warning. So, anyways. It's really repetitive with the stuff, but yeah. Anyways, let's get into the review. Yeah. So I wrote down quite a few notes here. Actually, it was an interesting episode. Like there was a lot going on. And yeah, you kind of had to. I watched it over again. Actually, like just about an hour ago or half an hour ago, I watched the whole thing over again just to see if I missed something or didn't catch everything. So. Yeah, there you go. So my first point was Negan always carrying around Lucille, as you see in this picture as well, that he's carrying it. He carries around everywhere, and I just really appreciate that because I think it's basically he treats it like a person, like a character, right? To him, it's a character in the show basically. So, and in the comic books, I know that it's like named after his dead wife or something like that. So yeah, so I just thought it was really interesting that he always carries it around, probably to scare the rest of the people living there, like just to like say like I can beat beat the holy hell out of you, using his own words, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's a scare factor, and I just think it's interesting. I think he actually has a relationship with this bat, and that sort of just shows the sociopath in him, along with other stuff. And so I think this whole episode, actually, no, I'm gonna come back to that. The sanctuary was very big, by the way. As we saw, the building that Dwight was sitting eating his sandwich at the beginning. It was huge, man. Like we're talking like probably in like airplane hangar big. Like it was, well, maybe not that big, but it was pretty big. And when Rick and the group went and went to that other place, the satellite place or whatever, and killed all those saviors, that was like nothing compared to this. So that's pretty crazy, actually. And they do have a lot of people here. So yeah. Yeah, it's huge. So I'm thinking they have probably about 100. About 100, I'd say, yeah. Because the kingdom has a lot too, right? So, I mean, it's all relative, but yeah, quite a few. Quite a few. The dog food sandwich, I don't know if, yeah, I'm guessing everyone caught that, but I thought that was pretty funny. I thought I mentioned that about how Dwight basically, he gets, all his stuff for his sandwich, his lettuce, tomato, his egg, and all that, and makes himself a nice sandwich, and then for Daryl, it's just some dog food on the end piece of the bread. By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but he took the end piece of the bread and then took some dog food and put it on. So yes, and then one of the opening scenes here, I think pictures went by. We see Daryl naked, in the little like it was like a closet room almost. It wasn't even like a big room. And he's obviously starving, and he'll eat it. So I think this episode takes place a few days after, right? Like I think he's been getting tortured for at least a week or so, like, or at least like, yeah, I'd say at least a week, probably. So, that just sort of tells you, how long it's been going and stuff. But I think it's definitely been going on before this episode, obviously. So, yes, and I also, everyone is bowing down to Negan at the sanctuary. When he passes you, you have to bow down. That's sort of the rules, which I found was pretty interesting. I mean, the fact that people actually do it and everyone obeys that and kneels down is pretty cool. I mean, in this picture here, you can see Dwight was like even took down Daryl to a knee to make sure that he was on his knee for Negan when he passed. So I thought that was interesting that that all the people there are doing that. So he's obviously has full control over everyone there. Again, constant mentions of Lucille. Like he, in almost every line he had, he mentioned something about Lucille and or stuck it in someone's face. Like that scene with Daryl. That I'll be talking about in a little bit. With him escaping to the motorcycles, he was saying how Lucille this, and stuff like that. And he says that also at the end with Dwight, and he's like, oh well, Lucille's a stickler for rules and stuff like that. So it's interesting. That just goes on again about like how he really like sees Lucille, his baseball bat, as a person almost. So yes. And also what I noticed in the episode, so the Saviors all bow down to him really, but the other ones, and he mentioned about his lieutenants. So basically, the guys, like Fat Joey, we got his name, Dwight, and then a few others there that were in the circle when Daryl escaped. Those guys all have like extra perks compared to the other people. So they get their own room, like they showed Daryl at the end, like this could be yours, and stuff like that. So basically, I think Negan wants Daryl to become one of them, and work for him and be one of the top guys. But yeah, I think those people all get extra perks because then again, you saw Dwight at the beginning making the sandwich. Yeah, well, he got all the lettuce and the tomato and the bread, fresh bread and stuff. So, those were all sort of like extra perks that he got that no one else did. So yeah. But that's pretty self-explanatory with every leader organization. The high ups get more stuff, and that's the way Negan's running it in the sanctuary as well. Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about this now. So Negan was testing Dwight. So there was a lot of tests throughout this episode, I think. And Negan says how Dwight and him are cool, or they're cool now or whatever. But I really think that's debatable because a lot of times, and you see in this picture, this is the scene I'm mainly talking about here. That Negan is like constantly testing him on stuff, and I'll tell you what I mean. So here in this scene, he's basically testing him, to come and get a girl or whatever with Negan, and Negan's like saying it's free and all this, and obviously Dwight doesn't want to, right? Or he doesn't think he should or whatever, and he was saying, some excuses like I haven't done the job yet, I don't deserve it and stuff, and doing that stuff. But I really think that was a test by Negan. I think throughout this whole episode, it's all like Negan was testing Dwight all the time. And we saw Dwight being a little reluctant throughout this episode. So I think this is kind of the beginning of the end for Dwight. This episode sort of showed that he's probably the only one in his top guys who isn't 100% loyal. Like he knows. He doesn't want to be really, but he knows he has to be in. And I think it's different for the other guys. I think they legitimately would do anything. They would die for Negan. But I think Dwight is a little bit different than them, and I think he's going to be the one that's going to change Negan, or at least change the storyline a little bit here. Yeah, so he was testing him and offering the girl, and then Dwight ends up, taking the call. With the grab and go, and Negan says, "Good boy," like good job. which it obviously, like he's trying to get Dwight, and I don't know what would happen if Dwight said yes to the girl. Probably nothing. I mean, he probably would have been like nothing would have happened, but I think Negan would have thought of him differently, right? So this is it was interesting. So the fact that Dwight picked the job, and I love the line Negan says, "Get Fat Joey to do it. God knows he needs the exercise." That was pretty funny as well. But yeah, so he's offering all these things. He's saying like, "Oh, come on," sort of like peer pressure in a way, right? But Dwight sticks to him, or what? Sticks to his what he wants to do, and goes on the call. So yeah, and then I heard some other theories as well. That, well, not theories, but like things here that I missed. About like testing Dwight at the beginning when what's her name, Sherry, his ex-wife, with the pregnancy test in the doctor's office there, and I really think that was a test as well, right? I don't think it was a coincidence that Dwight walked in with Daryl at the exact time that the Sherry's having a pregnancy test. So I think that was a test too, to see how Dwight would react. And to see, how Dwight is still feeling about it. He obviously has hard feelings, like, he's definitely not okay with Negan just, taking his wife away from him, and stuff, obviously. But, I mean, he's handling it because he knows that he can't really do much, so, yeah, I think that was a test as well. And then, another test is when he went with the grab and go to bring the guy back, or to bring the group back, I guess, that did it, which ended up just being the one guy. I did get his name, Gordon, yeah, so that was his name, the guy that he ended up shooting there in the scene. But that was also a test, I think, too, because Negan was trying to see if he would let him go, or, if he was slowly, understanding them and seeing that. And he could have just said, they escaped or whatever, and again, nothing would have happened probably, because Negan trusts them, but I think Negan would have thought of him differently again. But the fact that Dwight kills him, which we'll get to later, but the fact that Dwight kills him and then brings him back, I think is proof of what Negan wanted to see, basically. Like, I think that's what he wanted, is for Dwight to handle it and know that Dwight is still on his side and is still enforcing stuff. So, so I think that it's kind of wrong that Negan tests Dwight, obviously, but I mean, it's hard to trust anyone in this in this world, It's really hard, and Rick and the group, they didn't trust the Alexandrians, and they didn't trust Aaron at the beginning either, so, it takes a while, but, so we'll see. I don't know. I think Negan, if he's testing Dwight like this, and Dwight keeps passing the test over and over again, I think that eventually he's gonna just trust him completely, and I think that's when Dwight needs to turn and end it. So, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so we kind of already touched on this, but the music every time Daryl got fed, so that's, the Easy Street song or whatever. That was kind of interesting. One of my friends, he was searching it up afterwards, listening to it. I thought that was kind of messed up. I'm like, man, but yeah, so it was pretty funny. But yes, so that's an interesting thing there. I think that was just part of the torturing thing to, basically make Daryl go crazy. And every time he heard that song meant, it was eating time and stuff, and I don't know, some more messed up stuff that they did to him. But yes, and if you think of it, I really think that they could have done without all this. I mean, he's living with the guilt, knowing that he killed Glenn, you know what I mean? Basically he did. So I feel like that would probably be enough. He promised, he probably would be punished already enough. And this is just, I don't know, I feel like this is too much, this is overboard, but I mean, obviously Negan can't just let him go and be guilty, so he has to do something, and he didn't kill him, which was generous, as well. I mean, Daryl got out of line and punched him, and and he's a he's a stickler for rules, or Lucio's a stickler for rules, as he said, so he wasn't gonna let that one fly. All right, what else do we got here? Oh yes, and this was another part that I heard of as well. How Dwight was jealous of Daryl, and I really believe this because many parts in this episode we saw it too, where like Dwight's wearing Daryl's jacket. He has his crossbow. He has his bike. And he really like wants to be Daryl. He's pretty jealous of him. And throughout the episode, you kind of saw that, especially in that last scene, where Negan is like treating Daryl, and he says, if you answer one simple question, you can have all this. Who are you, or whatever, right? In that scene, you can kind of see Daryl like, being a little bit jealous of him, and I truly think Negan thinks more highly of Daryl than he does Dwight, even though Dwight's his like one of his top men, and has been for the past little while. So I think Daryl is way tougher and way more equipped for the apocalypse, and like he's a better guy for Negan, really. Than Dwight is anyways, right? So I'm not surprised that Negan thinks he's better. But I think Dwight's really jealous of Daryl, and he really wants to be just like him. And now that he's seeing Negan's treating him so well, he's obviously not going to be a big fan of that. That's also why he was, getting mad at him when he put him back in that like closet. I'm gonna call it a closet because it doesn't look like a room. I mean, that's so small. But basically, and put him back and getting mad at him, So I think he was kind of taking his anger out on Daryl there. The Negan comedy was great again in this episode. We saw it in the premiere as well. He's hilarious. Like, honestly, I'm falling in love with the Negan character. Well, I should say that because he killed Glenn and Abraham, but you know what I mean. I'm loving the comedy side of him. It's just hilarious. And in this episode, that's exactly what you needed. It's a pretty dark episode. Depressing a little bit maybe. But his comedy sort of, I laughed a few times in the episode. So I think that kind of brightens it up and makes it watchable, sort of. If you know what I mean. I mean, I'd watch it anyways, but So yeah, I think that kind of helps. His line, "I'm thirsty, so I'm gonna go get a drink," and he just walks away from that big circle there, where Daryl's in the middle. So I thought that was pretty funny, and you don't scare easy, that that line as well. I'm bad at doing impressions of Negan. I'm sorry, but yeah, I thought that was pretty funny as well. Yeah, so, let's do, oh yes, and, the Sherry, ex-wife of, Dwight, she also, like, she's taken a liking to Daryl, quite obviously, right, and she, comes, to him when he's about to escape, and tries to help him, and honestly, like, I really did not like Daryl in this scene. I'm like, she is the wife of Negan, and she's trying to help you right now, okay? Like, why don't you listen to her and just go back? And, I mean, I get what he's trying to do, right? He's trying to escape and obviously get out of this torture, and this is his, one chance. But, honestly, like, even watching it, I knew that it was a setup. Like, I knew that there was no way that guy accidentally left his door open, so he could leave. Like, it's just like, it's too easy, you know what I mean? And especially with Negan and the Saviors, it was too easy to me, and I even figured that out. So, but obviously, I mean, he's going insane, and he's in, extreme conditions, basically, right now, being, tortured, and just screwed with all the time. So I wouldn't blame him for trying to escape. But after she says that, like, I don't know why he still went and tried to escape, which kind of annoyed me, to be honest. But I mean, what are you gonna do? But anyway, so she obviously is taking a liking to him and feels sorry for him. And then later in the episode, she comes and says, basically apologizes and says the line, you told me that I'm gonna be sorry, or you're gonna be, or something like that. When they saw him back in season 6, and she says, "I am now." So she obviously feels sorry for him, and obviously she's not gonna help him, I don't think, because she knows that the repercussions from Negan. She's his wife, and she can't do that. I definitely feel like she does not love Negan. I'm pretty sure that's obvious to all of us. But I don't think she loves Negan at all. That's for sure. So, yeah, but I think she knows that if she did that, then, she'd be done. So I don't think she's going to help him at all, but I think, well, I should say that, like, I don't think she's going to directly help him, but let's say in a scenario where he's, like, at the gate, and he's leaving, I don't think she would, like, alert anyone, in that situation. A lot of movies and TV shows, they have those situations, but I don't think she would be the kind to do that, but I just don't think she's gonna, open his door and let him go one day, but she definitely does feel sorry for him. Sorry, we can see that. So yes, let's talk about the scene with Gordon. So he finds, or sorry, well, he goes out for this what is it called, grab and go, they called it, call basically, and he finds the truck that they went out in, Gordon and a little group, I guess, of people. It looked like quite a lot of people though, because there was a lot of walkers in that little in the roadway there. There was like, I'd say probably about 10 walkers in that thing, right? So I don't know if they were all from the food truck or not, but or from the getaway truck, but there was quite a few. So I'm guessing Gordon and maybe like 8 other people, or 10 other people. And Gordon is the only one alive after all that. And we do see Gordon at the very beginning, by the way. In the first picture here that I had, the little screen cap, it was Gordon in that little garden place. He's the one that Dwight gets the eggs from. So yeah, so we do see Gordon before that. And yeah, so that whole scene was interesting about how Dwight finds him, and I really think Gordon got through to him. I really think that that Dwight's starting to realize, and even heard Dwight, in that scene as well, and he said, we can't do anything. He owns everything, and he's going to own everything or whatever, and anything left he's going to own. So obviously, and we see, like, again, that's another example. Dwight isn't probably as loyal as Negan thinks, and Dwight probably doesn't really want to be in the position he is, but he knows that he has to be. He's smart. So he's not going to do anything. So obviously, I think that this guy sort of got through to him and made us see Dwight's sort of weak side, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was kind of pointed out already, and we're sort of starting to realize that with this episode as well, making it a little bit more obvious. Especially because Dwight, he isn't a new, he wasn't with Negan since a beginning part either, right? He's, he escaped from the sanctuary and with trying to get the meds for his girl, we find out later, and yeah. So he's definitely not a perfect guy on Negan's standards, or the Savior's standards there. But yeah, it was an interesting scene, and Dwight eventually, he knows he has to do the job and he has to bring him back. So he basically crossed the line, and Gordon just wants to die because he doesn't want to go back to the sanctuary. And Dwight just draws the line and says that he's gonna, kill all of his family or make them go on the fence, which I'm a little bit confused upon about that. The whole points thing was what the guys in the jackets were doing with the A on the jacket, like Daryl. That was the points thing, right? Of taking the helmet off a walker or whatever, those little pails. That was the point thing, and then to work on the fence is where the walker's there, right? I'm a little confused still, but I think that's what it was. So, and he was saying, how he would kill them. And obviously Gordon, realized that, it's not worth it to get them all hurt, so I'm gonna go back. And the fact that Dwight went there is kind of telling, that he was really desperate. Like, he needed to get him back, and he knew that he had to do it for Negan. If he didn't, like I said at the beginning, Negan definitely would have thought of him differently. Again, I don't think anything would happen, but obviously Dwight knows the consequences. And then he ends up killing Gordon. So that was interesting. I mean, I really didn't expect that. When Gordon got up and started walking, and then we saw Dwight walking a little bit, I'm like, okay, they're going back. Switch to the next scene or whatever, and then it just zooms in on Dwight's face, and we see him. Well, we don't actually see him, but we hear all of this about him shooting Gordon in the back. So I think it was a mercy killing. I hold true to that. I don't think Dwight killed him just because, or something like that. Like, yeah, I think it was a mercy killing. He knew that Gordon didn't want to go back alive. He knew that was, he really didn't want to do that. And I think he felt for Gordon too, he kind of knew his pain, and I think he's in the same spot, really. But he's just not ready to do what Gordon did, obviously, and he's kind of a loyal guy to Negan, so, yeah, so I think it was a mercy killing. He put him down, and for his own sake, basically, because he definitely didn't want to go back. And he killed him, but we find out that he ends up bringing the Walker, Walker Gordon back, and puts him on the fence. In the end, we see that he's been put on the fence with the other Walkers there in that little property part there of the fence. So it's I don't know about that. I mean, I kind of lost a little bit of respect for Dwight at that moment there. But again, as I said before, I mean, he kind of had to bring him back because I feel like that was another test by Negan, and Dwight's smart enough. Like, he knows that Negan's trying to test him, obviously, right? I think they both know what's going on. But yeah, so I think Dwight knew that he had to bring him back, that he couldn't just let him go and stuff. So he did kill him, I think, out of the kindness to Gordon. I think that was, like I said, a mercy killing. But I think he brought him back because he needed to make Negan aware that he was still loyal of him, and he was still enforcing his rules and all that stuff. Yeah. What else do I got here? Daryl is sort of breaking down, but honestly, this episode was sort of about Dwight and Daryl. It was kind of a two a banger. And I find it funny because if Daryl starts working for Negan, what are they gonna call Daryl? I mean, they're calling Dwight D, right? And they both start with D's, their names, so I guess they'll just go by Daryl and Dwight then instead of D. Or maybe they might keep calling him D, who knows. But I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, so I don't know, we kind of see Daryl breaking down, and it's kind of unfortunate to see, to watch, because we've been in love with Daryl since season 1. And honestly, I'm just glad that Negan didn't kill him in the lineup, to be honest with you. Like, I'm pretty happy about that he didn't die. So anything else is sort of just a bonus, to be honest. But in my opinion, I think Daryl is breaking down, but he's not at the point, and even when Negan offered him at the end, he said, who are you? And all he had to do is say Negan, right? And get everything there. Which I think he could have done, like, even because he was basically trying to show toughness and, showing that he's not broken down. But he could have said Negan, and then, pawned it all off and basically living a lie and just buying time to do something, right? Like, he could have said Negan, got all the stuff, and just, like, stop being tortured, right? But, I mean, no one said he actually had to be loyal and do all the work and stuff, right? So, and obviously Negan is taking a liking to him as well. Like I said earlier, I think he likes him better than Dwight, to be perfectly honest. So, he could probably get away with a couple things as well. So I really think he should have said Negan. We were all saying, I even was watching the show, I swear, and I said at the point, I'm like, say it, because he really should have just said it, would have ended all this. But obviously he's staying true, and he's showing that he's tough and he's not going to break down, and so he says Daryl. which is interesting. But that's Daryl Dixon. I mean, he hasn't changed since season 1. Honestly, that's just who he is. That's Daryl Dixon. You know, he's a tough guy, and he's not going to let these guys break him down. But I think at some points he had to. Like, he had to turn back and go back to his room instead of escaping. He had to say Negan at the end there, but he didn't do either thing because, you know, he can't do that. And then he's also said at the end, which I was also going to talk about, but this is a good leeway, to Dwight about saying, you know, you did it for someone else. I get that, and that's why I can't do it, because I'm thinking of someone else. And I think the someone else is either Carol or Glenn, I think, because we know that Carol and him had a good relationship before. But I'm not sure that he even knows where Carol is at this point in time. So I'm not sure. I think it would be Glenn, because, you know, he can't say, you know, he wants to work for the Saviors after, you know, Glenn got killed. And him and Glenn were pretty close. And I guess Abraham, too, would work. But he's known Glenn since, you know, season 1 as well. So I don't know how long exactly the show has been going for, but probably about the same time as we've seen it. Probably maybe had a couple extra years. So maybe about, you know, 7 years, 8 years maybe. And so he's known him a long time too, right? So I think he's talking about Glenn in that situation there. Yes. So and he's saying, you know, he can't do it. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, honestly, that's all I gotta say. We'll see what happens. I think Daryl's tough, and I think Negan knows that, and he just needs to break him down. And I think Dwight's gonna keep trying. There's no doubt that he's not going to. But yeah, so I thought that was a big thing too, because again, we see Dwight sort of feeling for Daryl, and basically like noticing, yes, like, you know, I understand that. You saw his face sort of. He didn't just slam the door. He looked at him and sort of, you know, in a welcoming manner, like he wasn't always, you know, he wasn't angry at him or, you know, stern looking as usual. So yeah. So yeah, let's see what happens to Daryl. I just think Daryl is gonna refuse. He's not gonna do it. He's not gonna break down, and obviously there's gonna be consequences if he doesn't. And honestly, like at this point, I think that Daryl would rather die than basically submit to Negan. And I think that it may come to that. I don't think that. I hope, like, man, I hope that they don't kill him off. But I don't think they will. I think that he's gonna survive. But I think it may soon come to that. And I think this episode sort of showed us that it's basically, you know, the battle of the toughest. Who's tougher? Negan and Dwight torturing him, you know, and not giving up, or Daryl not giving up, and I guess relentless is another word, and not giving up and not submitting. So yeah, it's kind of a race to the finish, I guess, maybe, for them, and to see what happens. So yeah, and then just the couple last things here. About so we learned about all Dwight's story, which a lot of people who read the comics kind of knew, but I don't know, it might be changed. But the whole iron thing, I already knew that because a bunch of my friends read the comics and they told me about that. So and it's kind of, yeah, I don't know. I guess if you only watch the show, you wouldn't get that. But it's also been on like spoiler websites and stuff like that. So yeah, Dwight got an iron to the face because he basically went out and stole all the goods. Which we actually find out that when they met up with Daryl last season and they took his stuff, the bike and the crossbow and all that, that was when they escaped. Like, they were gone from the sanctuary at that time. That is when they're talking about that they escaped. And Negan says that he was going to marry her sister or whatever instead, but then she ended up dead. And she, like, we saw her die in that episode there. So that's pretty interesting how they link it all up, and then it all makes sense. I thought that was pretty cool as well. But yeah, so sort of interesting how Sherry basically gives her life for Dwight, and I think obviously Dwight was trying to do the same, but Negan wasn't understanding that. But obviously he needed a woman, I guess, so Sherry and him are together now, and Dwight only got an iron. So I don't know, like I still don't understand how Negan can accept him then as one of his top men after he did that and after he does the iron. Like, how can he think that Dwight legitimately forgives him for that, and that they're cool? He says, he says that now we're cool now or whatever. I'm like, there's no way that he thinks they're actually cool, but obviously Dwight is going to be loyal to him because he knows what would happen, stuff like that. So, I think that just about wraps it up. Anything else I can think of? Not really. The scene where Dwight and Sherry are smoking together at the stairway, I think I included one of the screen caps in here of that. I thought that was a pretty interesting little scene there that they had, sort of awkward talking to each other, and I think they still love each other, I think. But it's different circumstances now, and they can't anymore because of Negan. But I think they secretly, it's not really secret, but I think they do still love each other, and I think that scene was pretty important to the episode, and seeing how, they're still recovering from it, and, they probably aren't too happy still about that as well, but, again, that just shows, that they can't change, they can't really do anything about it, so that's just how things are, and, and I just want to mention the line about Gordon saying, he's a thug with a bat, he's one guy, and we have all of us, and I thought that was pretty interesting, too, and I think that's going to impact the show a little bit, this season later on, because I think that, that's the truest statement of the whole episode. I mean, really, he is one guy with a bat, and there's all the other ones, and honestly, even the saviors who, aren't his men, the saviors that are, just, the sort of the middle class, I guess you could say, or maybe even the below middle class, to be honest, they don't treat them very well, but those guys, if they all banded together, they could easily take Negan and all of his men out. It didn't look like he has many men. Maybe 10, maybe 20. 20 is probably pushing it. Maybe 10 at most of these top guys they trust. They could probably do it. They could do it. But it's just sort of that scare factor that Negan basically puts into all of them. And yeah, that's just how it is, I guess. But yeah, I feel like that's going to come back. That's going to come back in the season. I thought that was pretty important. But anyways, that just about wraps up the review for today. I'm glad I got this out on Monday this time, a little bit earlier. There will be a countdown this week. I'm sorry I let you guys down on last week, but I will be putting a countdown up and a predictions video. I forgot all about that last week until it was too late. But I will be uploading those two this week for you before next week's episode. And I'm excited for next week. We get to see Rick's group, and Negan's probably going to, we saw in the preview about the little pig let me in, little thing there. So he's coming to Alexandria. Episode should be good. It's a 90-minute episode, guys, so that'll be pretty cool. Obviously, I'm going to talk more about it in the predictions video, but that is it. If I missed anything, please comment down below. Let me know any questions, or share your thoughts on the episode, too. It's really nice. I like to read them. And, yeah, just fill me in. So, anyways, I'm sorry this one's a little bit longer. It took me a little bit more time to get out my thoughts here. I did have a lot of notes on this one. But, yeah. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Please subscribe, and please share the channel to as many people as you know, so we can grow together and become a bigger society here of Walking Dead fans. I love it. Yep, until next time, we will see you later. Peace out.